Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Inshallah, we resume with the rulings of fasting and issues related to fasting. Tonight, inshallah, we'll talk about things that invalidate the fasting. What breaks the fasting? If you remember, in the last time, we mentioned that the ahadith and the ayat are very limited, but the scenarios of people are unlimited. The hadith and the ayat are very limited, but the scenarios of people and what comes to us in our culture is unlimited. Because of that, we need scholars to try to give us the fatwa to do the ijtihad. And sometimes they don't agree over certain things. So what we are going to mention here, not all scholars agree. Basically, I'm following the Shafi'i madhab in this regard. Some of the texts that are used usually for things that invalidate the fasting is when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, said, "Man dara'ahu al-qayb fala فليتم صومه ومن استقاء فعليه القضاء." Whoever is overwhelmed by vomiting, let him continue his fasting. But if he is whoever is doing it intentionally, then he has to make up. This is one of the clear texts that you have to make up the fasting if somebody intentionally vomits. We know the ayah in the Quran, if someone is traveling or sick, then they can make up the days. Now the details, what kind of sickness, how far the distance, other hadith and other understanding of scholars. Another hadith is Aisha when she says, when we used to have our monthly cycle, then we were commanded to make up fasting, but not to make up salah, make up fasting. So monthly cycle or after birth, bleeding, all of that invalidates the salah. The Messenger ﷺ advised someone to rinse his mouth when he taught him wudu thoroughly, unless if you are fasting. So rinse your mouth thoroughly a lot, unless if you are fasting. So now scholars come to this hadith and try to apply it in different scenarios. Another hadith and ayah, the hadith and two hadith related to coughing, blood coming out of the body of a person, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed by someone who was making the cupping, the hijama. Then he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Aftara al-hajim wal-muhtalim." The one who is doing it and the one to whom it is done, both of them their iftar, they are breaking their fasting. Then another narration that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did hijama when he was fasting. So which one overrides the other one? Was this earlier? Then Allah made it easy for this ummah, and how that to be applied to every day now, blood transfusion and lab work, etc. So these are some of the hadith that always are mentioned and quoted, but the scenarios are many. In general, what comes inside the body, internal, or comes out, will invalidate the fast. And serious is what comes in. That means anything that comes from the mouth directly. And the nose. Why? Because the nose is connected to the mouth, and the back and the throat, they are connected. So anything that comes from the mouth and the nose. And what else? They add another passage that goes inside the person, the ear. So if there is a drop or something that comes inside the ear, reaches the inside, especially if you taste it in your throat, then the fasting is invalid. Now, is there a hadith specifically about ear drop? No. This is understanding of scholars, because anything that comes inside then invalidates. Another thing that, of course, monthly cycle, we mentioned, is very clear. It's not allowed for women to observe fasting. And girls, even like if she feels shy and she's not sharing with her family, still the fasting is invalid. She should not intend to fast at all. It is a sin even, according to scholars, to fast while she is not commanded to fast. She is commanded to break her fasting. Vomiting intentionally, it breaks the fasting. Falling unconscious the whole day, then that invalidates the fasting. But if somebody sleeps or he loses his mind unconscious, a surgery or a procedure within the day, and even if he wakes up for a short period during the day, then his fasting is valid. If it covers all of the day, somebody falls conscious unconscious for 3 months in hospital, including the month of Ramadan. So is he considered fasting the month of Ramadan? We say no, he is not fasting the month of Ramadan. There is no portion of the day to have intention to be fasting. And niyyah is very important, right? So the niyyah that he fasts and to practice the fasting at least 1 hour during the day. So falling full conscious completely. And of course, apostates, if somebody leaves Islam, Allah forbids, also that invalidates his fasting. These are the main categories and main things that break the fasting. Now, blood transfusion, for many scholars, yes, and this is one of the debatable, because some said in early Islam, the Messenger ﷺ said the one who's doing hijama, both of them, the one who's doing it and to whom it is done, both of them, it breaks the fasting. Then they said Rasulullah ﷺ, he did hijama while he fasted. Now, was that something special to him, Rasulullah ﷺ? Because we know that he has special things, including marrying more than 4, right? So was that something special for him or for others? He prohibited his ummah to continuously fast, but he did it himself, right? So there are things that scholars say, is it allowed or not allowed? Also kissing his wife, Aisha in some narrations, that he kissed his wife, whether that is special for Rasulullah, was allowed to marry more than one, or it is for every Muslim because there is a hadith. So this is a matter that I don't solve, with scholars solve and give us the ijtihad. So try to avoid full blood donation and taken during the month of Ramadan. If you want to donate the blood out of the month of Ramadan. If somebody is sick, most likely he's sick and he needs a blood, that is obvious, or most likely that he will not be fasting because his body is weak and he needs the blood. Anyway, the blood will invalidate his hijama. Try to avoid it during the month of Ramadan to be safer. Small lab work, just a little bit of small amount of the blood that comes out of the body, that will not invalidate the fast. Anything that comes in now, suppositories that goes to the private parts, the front or back, invalidates the fasting. If there is a procedure, telescopic procedures, medical, from the front or the back, try to avoid it on the safe side. And in Shafi'i madhab, that invalidates because it goes to the emptiness, the cavity of the body. So anything that goes inside the body, even if it is not food. So in Shafi'i madhab, they say, what if somebody throws a small stone in his mouth? It is not food. Does that break his fasting? Then we say, yes, it breaks his fasting. They say, similarly, if someone has a procedure and from the private parts, they get something inside the body, also that invalidates the fasting because it goes inside the cavity of the body. So try to avoid them. And if somebody wants to fast, it's safer to observe another fasting during the later on in the year. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Anything that comes from outside on the skin will not invalidate the fast. Okay, you put some cream, you put some ointments or something that goes inside, will not invalidate because it doesn't reach usually. So if it stays usually, and the majority of it in the muscles, including insulin, like in injections and muscle injections, all of that will not, because it doesn't go inside the cavity of the body, and it is not in the usual passage, which is the mouth. IV, it is like food, goes inside the body through the veins. That breaks the wudu, the fast. And lastly, there is another thing that breaks the fast also related to our daily life. Of course, smoking breaks the fast. Inhaler breaks the fast according to many scholars, including in Shafi'i. So it's better to avoid it unless if somebody needs it extremely and he cannot even make up later on during the year the puffs, like these inhalers. But it's safer to avoid it. Wallahu ta'ala alam. These are some of the major issues that people usually ask about them. I mentioned last time, try to brush your teeth before the Fajr start and after Maghrib. Try to avoid this extra rinsing of the mouth and the strong smell of it. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Jazakumullah khair. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.